exactly what's going on, and is this real or not?
Thanks for having me on, Steve. As you know, we've followed this case right up until it got dismissed on your show for a while. This is a 2020 election lawsuit out of Georgia that basically it pertains to 147,000 absentee mail-in ballots that were previously unsealed by a judge. Now, the plaintiffs in the case brought this case forward, alleging that fraudulent votes diluted their own, as well as that Fulton County broke the Georgia Open Records Act. Well, basically, this judge, after the plaintiffs did an analysis of the ballot images that were made available, they found a number of red flags, including like handwritten ballots that had been scanned in multiple times, creating multiple images of the exact same ballot. And you could tell because of the handwriting. Well, this actually corroborates some of the footage Rudy Giuliani put out at State Farm Arena that showed people scanning the same stacks of ballots over and over. So after this was discovered, the judge, Judge Brian Amaro, had actually ordered that the ballots be unsealed and that higher resolution scans of these ballots take place. This was all set to move forward until Fulton County ended up hiring one of Georgia's top criminal defense attorneys, Don Samuel. This guy is known to represent dirtbags, for lack of a better word. And so now taxpayers are funding him to represent Fulton County. So he quickly moved to have this case dismissed, basically citing that the plaintiffs didn't have standing, that there was no direct injury to them. And a case that was cited in their defense, right, was Confederate Veterans v. Henry County Board of Commissioners. And this basically was a case that was also found not to have any standing, which is why Judge Amaro ended up siding with Don Samuel and throwing it out. Well, that case ended up going before the Georgia Supreme Court, who actually reversed the decision and said that case did actually have standing. And here's a direct quote. It says,
so we have breaking news out of Georgia. Finally, 2 years post the 2020 election, the Georgia Supreme Court has heard the case regarding fraudulent ballots back in 2020. Multiple ballots allegedly been scanned repeatedly with the same handwriting, which proves that they were not different ballots. The lower court, the Court of Appeals, Judge Brian Amaro actually ruled against the plaintiffs in this case, which is being led by a guy named Garland Favortio with an organization called Voter GA. And once the case finally made it to the Georgia Supreme Court, they said that the lower court had to allow discovery, meaning that eventually at some point next year we will be able to access those 147,000 ballots that are in question. And if you follow this story over the years, this woman in the picture, Ruby Freeman, was seen on camera allegedly scanning multiple ballots multiple times, which were apparently fraudulent, adding to the vote totals for Joe Biden. I mean, these are all allegations. Nothing's been proven yet, but there's just been a lot of scrutiny down here in Georgia. Georgia was one of the most highly contested states there in 2020. Yes, Georgia is a lot more competitive than it was 15, 20 years ago, but it's still a red state. Georgia has a majority Republican state House, majority Republican state Senate. Georgia's governor is Republican, lieutenant governor is Republican, agricultural commissioner is Republican, secretary of state's Republican, insurance commissioner, public service commission. Every major office in the state of Georgia is a Republican. So Georgia is fundamentally still a red state by at least 5 to 6 points, but the media would have you believe that it's not. This case has been brewing for quite a while. As we all know, all Trump's chances to get cases heard at the Supreme Court level were dismissed, and there was no real discovery or investigation into these election fraud claims at any state except for Arizona, who actually did a forensic audit, which didn't really do anything. Some people say it proved fraud, some people say it didn't. So we'll see what happens down here in Georgia. I have one more clip from the attorney Garland Favortio. Shout out to him. This is what happens when you keep working and don't quit and don't take no for an answer. Shout out to him.
Favorito, is this real? Is this going to end up in that we're actually going to get hands on the ballots and be able to show the American people that they stole Georgia, sir?
Steve, first of all, thank you for having me back. It's been a great to be back with you. Yeah, it absolutely is real, Steve. And it's not just they just stole the election. They stole our standing. I've been saying ever since this case was dismissed that we actually did have standing. And even our good friends like John Fredericks and others didn't really believe that it was correct. But I got to give our hats, a tip of the hat to our attorney, Todd Harding, and he made this argument. The argument is that we do have standing. There are different arguments that could have been made. There are arguments that maybe we don't even need to have standing. But that argument carried the day. This is a real decision. We knew that it was coming. Todd has been telling us to watch the Sons of Confederate Veteran case for over a year. And just about a month ago, the Georgia Supreme Court ruled that, in fact, that individuals do have standing. This was a case of Confederate memorials that the Henry County and Newton County were trying to take down, and illegally, because all monuments and memorials are protected in the state of Georgia, whether you like them or not. And once the court ruled on that case, they said that citizens, residents, and taxpayers have always had standing in Georgia, which is exactly what I've been saying for over a year. It was an egregious decision originally that violated all of the United States Supreme Court presidents and the presidents in the state of Georgia.
So practically, we got about a minute. So practically, what does this mean going forward, Garland? What does this mean about getting your hands on the ballots and show that they stole it? But we won the standing thing. That's huge.
Practically, it means that we will be able to. The first step is going to have to go to back to the Georgia Court of Appeals. The Georgia Court of Appeals will then tell the court that they will have to abide by the Supreme Court decision, and then it will go back to Judge Amero, and Judge Amero will be forced to open up discovery on the case. This is the only way he could have gotten rid of discovery in the case, but now he will be forced to open a discovery, and once we open discovery, the first thing we're going to do is go after the ballots.
Perfect.
So we will get to see those ballots. I think we're going to get to do what we actually wanted to do all along.
Garland, can you give your social media? How do people track you down to your website?
Thank you, Steve. It's voterga.org. We are all over most of the social media platforms, and we are 501c3, all tax deductible.